You made it!
Yes, we are here in the Patreon exclusive content. As mentioned at the top of the episode, we are going to be deep diving into the other Wizarding World schools that have been revealed to us from the author on the website, wizardingworld.com, formerly known as Pottermore. And we're going to kind of deep dive into what we know about them from that website and how that kind of plays into cultural stereotypes, what we know about the places that these schools are located in, why we think certain descriptors and things like that were used. So this is going to be part one in a series, is possibly a two-part series, maybe more than a two-part series. I'm not sure. So there are 7 Wizarding World schools, and we're going to do 3 of them today and the other 4 next week, or in an undetermined episode in the future. And we're going to deep dive into them. So we're going to start with one of the more, well-known, which is Beauxbaton, which obviously we know from Goblet of Fire, Triwizard Tournament, we know Floor.
Also has witches and wizards.
Yes, it is a co-ed school.
Which is something that has been rewritten in my fucking brain as just witches because of Goblet of Fire, the movie.
Yeah, so the movie the movie portrayed it as a female, like a woman's only boarding school. It is a co-ed school. There are wizards and witches at this school. But as we know, it is located in France. According to wizardingworld.com, it is located somewhere in the Pyrenees, which I believe are mountains. And I will say that is one thing that I saw as like a theme throughout all of the schools, that they are all hidden in the mountains somewhere.
Oh, because like people don't go in the mountains?
Yeah, it's all mountains in every single one of these. So just be aware of that. So they're hidden in the mountains in France. So these are I pulled just the facts from the website that I thought were most interesting, or could garner some discussion. One of the facts from Beauxbaton is that it hosts a multitude of students of different nationalities. So it's not just French students. Just like, Hogwarts is mainly British people, but Beauxbaton does have mainly French students, but also hosts Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, Luxembourgian.
I think it's like the
Okay, Luxembourgian and Belgian students.
So wait, okay,
Yeah.
so we have like the students of different nationalities that are mainly French because, France. It's located there. And then like we have like the Romance language, except the Dutch, Belgian, and Luxembourgian. So some Romance language people and some not.
Yeah, so it's interesting because like a lot of
So
these,
the language of instruction is what, French?
it doesn't say.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess yes, French. But what's interesting is like a lot. So Hogwarts has like the UK students. There's tons of countries in the UK. So all of these are basically like in Western Europe, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I feel like that area of the world, because that area of the world, like Europe in general, is just filled with a lot of different countries.
Basically, Hogwarts is like the Brexit of like the schools.
Okay.
Because basically Beauxbaton has like the rest of the European population is what they're saying.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like that's what they're saying. So
okay, J.K. Rowling, you were probably pro-Brexit is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, God, who knows? But really the only thing other than that of note that is said about Beauxbaton anywhere on the website is that the castle is said to be stunning, referred to as a beautiful chateau, and features a magical fountain believed to have healing and beautifying properties.
Of course, beautifying properties in France.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is a lot of language centered around physical beauty. The castle is physically beautiful. It's described as a beautiful chateau. It's stunning. A lot of surface level, superficial looks being like the main discussion around this school. That is really the only thing of substance at all being discussed about this school on the website. So I feel like the author is kind of making a generalization about this part of the world, France maybe in general, having a lot of weight put on physical presentation. What do you think?
Oh yeah. I think that the way that Bobaton is portrayed not just in the Wizarding World website, but also in this series is very like image conscious, kind of like hoity-toity, we're better than you, but like not really being better
Yeah.
in a
Well,
way.
yeah, Flora's entire character is kind of centered around her being physically beautiful, like the Vila nature, her grandma being a Vila. Vilas are physically beautiful creatures that lure men to physical harm, I believe.
Yeah, kind of like a mermaid in a way, like not the mermaid in the Harry Potter canon
Like a
universe, but
siren.
like a siren in like
Yeah.
those stories. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of things associated with Beauxbaton are kind of focusing on this physical aspect. Yeah. And then also there was some stuff about a lot of it was about like Nicholas Flamel. He went to Beauxbaton fountain that they talk about that's believed to have healing and beautifying properties. They talk about how he used something with having to do with that fountain when creating the Sorcerer's Stone and all of these things. So a lot of it was either about the physical beauty of the school or the fact that Nicholas Flamel, the famous alchemist, went there. Those were the two things that were even remotely touched upon.
Yeah, it's not talking about like the quality of the instruction or anything else other than like just passing physical appearance of not just the students but also the structure itself. Okay.
Yeah, so that's Bobaton. Next, we're going to talk about Mahotokoru. Mahotokoro? Mahotokoro, I think is how you say it. I put the pronunciation here.
Mahuto Goro?
Mahotokoro. Yeah. And that is in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically described as an ornate jade palace that sits on top of the volcanic island of Minami Iwo Jima.
Okay, so wait. Are you fucking kidding me? That this person is like, you know what? Will scream Japanese. Let's make the palace
Jade.
not just ornate, but made out of fucking jade.
Yep. It's
Cool.
an ornate
Cool,
jade
cool.
palace, and it is sitting on top of the volcanic island of Minami Iwo Jima.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, which I think is like an inactive volcano. I believe is what they said in the thing. Something about a volcano. Anyway,
This
so we
person.
did so this one we get a lot more in-depth information on Mohoto Koro and Wagadu, which we're going to talk about in a second, than we did about Bobaton. So there is quite a bit more information to deep dive into on this one. But the first one is that it has the smallest student body of all of the 11 great wizarding schools, which we don't get information on all 11. We only get information on 7.
So we have like we get info on 7, but there's really 11. But I'm not gonna tell you about the other 4 because that would require more research. And what? Okay, cool. I'm just gonna sit back.
Yeah, so it has the smallest student body of all of the schools, and it actually starts taking students at the age of 7, as opposed to Hogwarts, which they start at the age 11. They don't board until they're 11. However, it does say that it's not actually a boarding school. It's just like a normal school where where the students are transported there every day. But get this, they're transported there every day on a flock of giant storm petrels, which I had to look up, are just like small birds, but apparently they're specified as giant petrels, storm petrels. And I could
God,
not,
this
I tried to find meaning on like why she might have picked storm petrels. There's literally like no meaning behind that I
Well,
could find.
you mean other than the fact that she like reduced Japanese culture into a fascination with jade palaces and
I
birds,
mean,
and also
we're not even through the half of it. There's so much more Japanese culture
no, no,
appropriation
no,
in this.
and also that the Japanese, like, you know, the good Asians that they are very focused on education. So they start their kids into wizard school 4 full years before Hogwarts does. Are
Yes,
you
they start
fucking
at age
kidding me?
7.
No, but are you, you know, I'm like, lady, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stereotypes being played on here, which is why I wanted to talk about this in depth in a Patreon
I
segment
cannot get
because,
over the Jade Palace. Like, I cannot.
yeah.
Like, that is a sticking point for me at this point.
Yeah, so another thing that she mentioned in this was they have a very passionate Quidditch culture. I had to kind of look into this a little bit because I didn't know a lot about like the sports culture or the culture surrounding sports in terms of Japan.
I
And
believe they're really into baseball.
they are.
Am I
They're really
wrong?
into baseball.
Okay.
They have a lot
I
of
knew we had that in common, like Japan and Puerto
well,
Rico.
so that's the thing. So that's the thing. I think that so the main when I looked up like sports culture in Japan, the main things I found were like sumo wrestling, karate,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and then the one that kind of fit the most in what I was trying to find out here was baseball. Baseball is an American made and invented sport. They have baseball diamonds just like all over Japan.
Mhm.
They're really into it. And so there was a little bit of backstory into like how the Japanese wizarding school came to learn about Quidditch. And it was because like these Hogwarts students were traveling and they were like traveling to Japan on some trip and they were playing Quidditch and the Japanese students were like, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" And then they kind of like latched onto it and became and then like took it in as their own and became really fucking good at it.
Oh, it's probably because you know, this author will tell you because the Japanese, they're so slight and fast, like Harry.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminded me. It's like the Japanese culture. I'm guessing I don't know the history of how Japan came to love baseball, but I'm guessing since it is an American invented sport, they learned about it from America, loved it, and
Probably,
adopted it as their
probably,
own.
probably during an invasion of our troops there. Who
Yeah,
knows?
probably. So it's kind of that like they learned about Quidditch from the British culture and became very enthused about it and adopted it as their own and became and basically dominates the sport now that they know how to play it.
Okay.
There's that. The next thing, oh, this was interesting. Okay, so the next thing I learned,
I have I have thoughts. I have thoughts on this next one,
yes,
and I'm gonna rant for a bit.
no, I'm excited to hear it. So the next one is that there's a note that they have enchanted robes that grow in size as they get older, which in itself sounds
Fair,
super convenient. Super convenient. Would totally
fair.
get one. Never have to buy a new robe. Anyway, the thing that the thing that is interesting about these robes, other than the fact that they grow on their own, is that they change color with the more experienced you get. And
Uh,
my mind immediately goes to when you're taking karate or taekwondo classes, you have belts that change
mhm,
color the more experienced you get. You
mhm.
start off as like a white or yellow belt and eventually get to black belt with lots of different colors in between. My sister took one of these classes and tried to explain to me the progression of the colors at one point, and I don't exactly remember. I think there's like a purple one in there. I don't know. But yeah, this seems to be a very similar concept that the robes. I believe the master color is gold. So when your robes turn gold, that means that you are a master of the craft. However, if your robes turn white, then that means that you've betrayed the Japanese wizard's code and engaged in illegal practices as and they explain these on the website as Voldemort levels of dark magic, for example. And when your robes turn white because of that, it results in an instant expulsion and a legal trial. So white robes are shamed, shown as dishonorable. There's like this big honor culture in Japan, as we are aware. You know, there are certain like warriors that kill themselves with their own sword, falling on their own sword when they have dishonored their people or dishonored their, it's a big cultural thing. Honor is a big thing in Japan. So when you've turned white, you've lost all your honor and are shamed and expelled.
I'm gonna keep my rant short on this.
Yeah. And by the way,
First
this is
off,
all like real stuff that is written about Mahoto Koro on Wizarding. I'm not making this up. I just want to reiterate
oh,
that.
I know that you are not responsible for this personally.
It's just, yep. Mhm.
You are not a transphobe billionaire who likely supported Brexit, okay? Anyhow, I have thoughts. First of all, even if she borrowed the like color changing snitch robes convention from like martial arts, how fucking lazy can you be, right? First. Second, I have no problem with like the changing sizes as you grow because I feel like that's super convenient and
Yeah.
also like really good, like super like body positivity wise,
Yeah. Yeah.
like no one is shamed for not fitting in their robes. What I do have a problem with is like the color coding structure of the robes. Like I'm calling them the snitch robes because they turn white if you do something like that is not acceptable, so everyone knows and you like literally wear your shame, you know?
Yeah.
Like there is no hiding from what you did. And while some people might think that that's acceptable, like just really carefully think about your life and the implications of you doing something out of desperation and those robes turning white. You know what I'm saying? Like the amount of
Yeah. And
shunning
that
for
literally,
one moment, you know?
yeah. Well, and it having white robes automatically results in an expulsion from school.
And a
And then you
trial.
get a trial. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's that. And even without the robes turning white, the idea that you can wear the level that you are in your robes and the robes dictate how far along in your academic journey or proficiency you are is so disheartening because it completely creates a like system, like a caste system almost in the competition of like, well, you're not in our group because your robes haven't, you have the wrong color
Yeah.
robes. Like, how are you supposed to
Well, yeah. And
foster
imagine,
an environment of community like that?
yeah. Well, like imagine if this was the case at Hogwarts and Neville,
Neville,
who took,
I was just gonna
yeah,
say Neville.
yeah,
Yes,
who's a little bit of a late bloomer. He takes a little bit more time. Imagine being in a class, like say he's in potions, and everyone in that fifth year potions class has like green robes, and he's still stuck in like the yellow robe stage, and it just takes him longer, and it's gonna be there, it's gonna be obvious, it's gonna be a sign on his back showing that he is just taking longer to catch on, and he's just, I mean, it's just awful. It's just, yeah.
like people already like face extreme prejudice and snark for who they are or where they are at life without having a colored robe
Yeah.
dictate where they are. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Neville already faces adversity without that. Imagine, like you said, like people who are late bloomers. Like how much more disheartening can you be?
Yeah. Yep. So that's
Just
all I
it's
have
just a
on
pressure cooker of an environment and I am pissed off.
yeah, no, I agree. I learned a lot just researching these, that I didn't know. That's all I had on Mahoto I just want
All
to make sure
right,
I'm
let's
saying it
move
right.
on to Wagadu in Uganda.
Yes. Yes, Ouagadougou is in Uganda, which is located in Africa, and it is specifically located somewhere in the Mountains of the Moon. Don't know what that is.
Okay.
I think that she might have made that up, honestly, from what I was reading. But if that's a real place, I'm sorry.
Well, it's just with this author, you never know, I swear.
Exactly. So, contrast to Mahuto Koro, which was the smallest of all of the wizarding schools, Ouagadougou is listed as the largest of all of the wizarding schools.
Okay.
It promotes wizarding prowess in the specific subjects of astronomy, alchemy, and transfiguration. And many of their younger students are already adept animagi.
Okay, stop. Please stop. This is a little problematic.
Well, wait, because
sorry.
I know where you're going, and I just want to make this one point before you get there. In the blurb that is written about this school, when they talk about the part of many of the younger students being adept animagi, they talk about them specifically turning into cheetahs and leopards and specifically things found in this in the Sahara Desert. Yep.
Okay, so on top of what I was already being like, fuck no.
Yeah.
That is a double fuck no.
Yeah. So those are the animals that they decided to list as what they could turn into.
And cut to Adri just screaming into the void at this moment.
Oh, elephants and cheetahs is specifically what it says. Yeah. 14-year-olds who could turn at will into elephants and cheetahs.
Sounds about white with this track record anyway. But like, let's leave off the second part of this that illuminates like the racism in this, inherent in this. But let's also talk about like the idea of like people who live in the continent of Africa, which is, this is why probably it's the largest school. It's because Africa is one of the largest continents in the world. And like they have one wizarding school, while like Europe has two at least.
Has two. Yeah.
At least. Because then we have Durmstrang, which is like Eastern Europe,
No, yeah.
So, okay. Anyhow, people who live in Africa are mostly black in the continent of Africa. I know Africa is not a country. I just want to make that clear. Are black. And like for centuries, I mean like the Western world have been treating black people like animals. Like they are animals, literal animals. That's how people justified slavery for the longest time. And you mean to tell me that the wizards of an African continent in, the Ouagadougou school are adept animagi?
Yeah,
I cannot with the caucasity of this bullshit.
Yeah.
And then on top of it all, they're not just any old regular animagi. They are elephants and cheetahs.
The next part I have is that the school encourages spells to be cast with hand gestures instead of wands. And it says the wand is a European the wand is a European invention, and while African witches and wizards have adopted it as a useful tool in the last century, many spells are cast by simply pointing the finger or through hand gestures. I have to say, I tried to do a little bit of research on like voodoo magic and like African tribal magic and things like that, because I definitely am getting the vibe that this is supposed to be very reminiscent of that. Black magic.
It is nothing like this. It is not like this at all.
No, I couldn't find anything that really linked them, but I just have a feeling that's where she got her inspiration for this. Because obviously, like, Black people are the magic that is associated with Black culture and Black history is usually seen to be very dangerous and mysterious. And
yeah, because white people can't understand it. But like the predominant lore in wizarding culture that we've been fed by the books, canon, I'm not talking about wizardingworld.com, is that while magic can be done without wands, it is preferable to have a conduit to channel that magic.
Yeah.
and European wizards use wands. Why not have a different conduit in different contexts and cultures, right? Like, no one is saying they had to use wands, but just saying that they use their hands and they don't need a tool to do magic is is contrary to like all the canon magic lore that is present in the books, and it also continues dehumanizing black people, because who else can do magic without a wand? House elves are slaves in the wizarding culture.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a good point. A really good point.
I'm
This
so
last
pissed
note that I
off.
have, I know really learn a lot when you look into it. And then this
Oh
last note that I
gosh.
have, the last thing that I pulled from Wagdu, it says students receive notice that they have gained entrance at Wagadu from dream messengers who appear to the children as they sleep and will leave a token, usually an inscribed stone, which is found in the child's hand on waking.
Oh, because cool, they don't have like paper is what we're saying,
I
right?
don't know. It just seems very like mystical. It's very. I feel like
It seems very rudimentary to me. Like in comparison, the comparison she's drawing is like, this is like old school, like rudimentary, like third world country bullshit. But Hogwarts has like owls and letters and like, a different
yeah.
process that is more
I feel like
cosmopolitan.
there's something like there's fundamental knowledge and insight that I'm missing that would explain this because there must be some sort of connection to actual beliefs and traditions and things like that in African culture that would make this make sense. Otherwise, this sounds very silly if there's no actual like thing that it's
You know,
drawing from.
to me this would make much more sense if like this school and the way it did magic was more focused on like the rituals, like the songs and the dance, and like, like things from actual, like, you know the continent of Africa, like its cultures. But like the thing is, it is a continent, so like all the cultures have like slight differences in how they worship even, right? So and I know that, but it just doesn't click for me, and this seems to be like, just like the previous one, and even Bobaton to an extent, like the most surface level interpretation of places. And then like, sounds about right. Moving on to the next one.
Yeah, those are the three that we're going to discuss it that we're discussing in part one. Stay tuned for part two, which will include deep dive similar to these on Castelo Bruxo, which is the Wizarding World in Brazil, and then Ilvermorny, which is obviously the American one that we've talked about in the Fantastic Beasts series, and then Durmstrang and Hogwarts, who we are aware of already.
So fun question is like, which one would I receive invitations to if I was a witch? Because like, I'm in Latin America, but I lived in an island that was property of the US.
I mean, it's probably between Castle Bruxo and Ilvermorny.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah,
but like, would the ownership of the land that I live on be the deciding factor and not my culture?
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I think the an interesting question is like if geographical location literally did not matter, which one would you want to attend?
Honestly, most of these sound like trash in terms of like, this is just very lazy research. So I would have to probably say Hogwarts, because like, better the devil you actually know.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, at least I won't have robes that change color and like
Yeah.
are like, you are still a level 1 on your 7th year, Just
Yeah.
like, no
There's
one needs to know how
definitely
dumb I am.
yeah, there's definitely one thing I learned specifically about Castle Broshu that I'm a little sad I won't be able to be on the episode to talk about. And this is the furry spirit beings that protect the school grounds. We'll talk a little bit more about those. You and the guest will the next time that this is brought up, but stay tuned because
Oh my gosh,
it's
I am
interesting.
looking. Okay, like really, she really did like the bare minimum and was like, sounds about right, even though this may be a little bit racist in the wrong context. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so stay tuned. Stay tuned for that.
You know what?
And
And in my headcanon, there's a Puerto Rican like witch and wizarding school, and it is amazing. And it has all the best food because, Puerto Rico has really good food. And it will be in the mountains, and that's fine.
well, that's it for tonight's Patreon
I'm
segment.
sorry that yes, and we are very sorry that you are going to miss the recording of the second segment, part of the segment, but I'm sure that you'll have a lot of fun listening to it.
I will still be there in spirit because I left very detailed notes for whoever is going to be covering this in the future. So it'll be my essence there.
Instead of like essence of Dittany, it will be like essence of Helene.
Yes. Exactly.
But this one cures the wounds of the soul.
Aw. Yeah. I like that.
Support this show by going to patreon.com/Akiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at akiopolitics.com, and we are at Akiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@akiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699. And you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Akiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.